licenses are 3-month expiration. So whether you're buying a 10, 20, 30 patch, you usually have 3 months. So you would typically buy it based on how many times per week you think you would come. But for this one, there's no expiration. So yeah, no, you're not limited to just 21 days. Any other? Yes?
Do you have any tips on the stations that have to do with balance? Like over time, do you find that your balance just improves because you're getting stronger?
Yeah, and balance has a lot to do with hip strength and core strength and just the coordination between the two. And so I believe you were the one that said you've been doing the last several years sitting at a desk. And
well,
so,
I mean, I do a lot of
and what happens with that is you lose a lot of mobility through the hips, and you lose a lot of strength through the core. And so sitting or day jobs where you spend a lot of sitting, balance goes a lot because you're actually, you have to get some of that mobility and strength back. And it does come back though. It just takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of time. All right, if that's all the questions, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Joey. Thank you very much.
All right, so for the first thing I want to go over is the portion sizes for the meals, not the snacks. The portion sizes for the meals, we're going to use our hand to be able to start. And it's not going to be exact, so with this model, you can make adjustments. So I don't think this is what you have to do and follow it to a T, but it is a pretty great way to do it because you always have your hand and you don't have to count calories, and depending on how tall or big you are, you're going to have a different size hand. So a bigger person generally weighs more, they need more calories to maintain that body weight. And it's a starting point, so if you're doing what it currently says and you don't see a lot of changes, you can definitely adjust it. But as far as a palm size, it's going to be that's a portion of meat or protein. So it could be beans and rice. What you want to do if you're not going to be eating meat for the program is look to incorporate complete proteins with each meal. It doesn't have to be with each snack, but each time you have a meal, you should be getting a pretty decent balance of protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And the exact proportion of those is not so critical. There's been tons of studies showing that this person or this group of people are following a diet that's a little bit higher in fat, a little bit less in protein, and a little bit less in carbs, and they're successful with it. They're eating good, healthy foods, and if they adhere to that, they can be successful. And there's also other proteins or other ways of eating where you can have high protein, low fat, and low carb, like the paleo diet. So it's not so much that one is necessarily better than the other. There's traditional diets all around the world that have different ratios of the macronutrients, and they are very healthy and successful with what they're doing. So don't get hung up on that, but the guide is going to help balance that out. As far as vegetables, it's fists. So it's if you have your hand in a fist, it's going to be a little bit bigger portion there. For carbohydrates, that's going to be, so what falls into carbohydrates is fruits and grains and starchy vegetables as well. And so you might be thinking, having a cupped handful of grain, that's a lot of carbohydrates, and in your mind you might think carbohydrates are bad, but again, I want you to kind of erase that from your mind. A good balance of food and nutrients and eating real foods, you're going to get a lot of vitamins and minerals from eating the carbohydrates, and it's also going to provide you with energy. So as you live an active lifestyle, your exercises are going to benefit from that. You're not going to be feeling like you're dragging, and also just providing you with energy throughout the day. So it doesn't have, you're not having both a cup of fruit and carbohydrates for one meal. It could be, brown rice, and a cup really doesn't mean a full cup. If you cup your hands, that might mean a half a cup for some people, or maybe 3/4 of a cup, or maybe a full cup for some people. depending on how big your hand is. And then, and for men, all these are 2, so 2 of each of these that I'm going over, and for females, like it says on the guide, it's 1. A thumb size of fat, quality fat sources, is basically, it's a little ambiguous, but it's about a tablespoon of an oil, or 8 or 10 almonds, or like a quarter of an avocado. So that's about how much fat you want to look to have each time you have a meal throughout the day. The recipes on in this challenge don't perfectly follow that guideline. Like you can have for some of the lunches or dinners, you may be able to add a side of fruit if you want, or some additional vegetables, or making sure you're throwing a fat source on there. But for the most part, they are pretty good to just follow. And again, not being perfect, it doesn't have to be completely perfect. Chances are one option is going to balance out the other a little bit. So with the recipes, the other thing I want to mention is you don't have to follow them exactly. I mean, we all have access to millions of recipes, and if you have recipes that you're used to eating and they follow the whole food guideline, then certainly continue doing that. It's harder to do anything new, and so just by following a new recipe, it's hard to be successful because you haven't practiced it. It's a little bit harder to shop. You have to really think it through a lot, and that's where the planning and preparation is going to come into play. On the last 2 pages of the manual, you'll find a weekly meal planner and also a monthly meal planner. So the first homework assignment you have is actually filling out the weekly menu plan, and you're going to pick out what you want to have. So there's a handful of breakfast options, there's a handful of lunches and dinners, and those are kind of interchangeable. But we want you to create your menu, because after 21 days, this is something that if you want to be successful eating whole foods, you have to do. If you were already super good and you had everything down, and you were going to the store and you could buy all real foods out of memory, and you come home and you cook them and you're prepared, and you wake up in the morning and that whole food breakfast is waiting for you there, then you probably wouldn't be sitting here. So we all have room to improve, and just having that open mind, knowing that okay, if I plan, I'm going to be more successful. I'm going to free up my my brain power on all the other busy things we have, our job, our kids, work, fun we want to have. So just to kind of take a little bit weight off your shoulders, having that and just the practice of filling it out once a week makes you more aware of what you need to plan, what you need to have at your home to be successful doing it also. So just the practice of doing it and doing it consistently, you're going to improve and get better at it. You may not be perfect. I mean, it's almost a guarantee you're going to run into some setbacks or not be perfect right off the bat, and that's fine. Each time you do it, you learn from that mistake, and it becomes a little bit easier, and you find a better day, or you can plan out and spend some time. So when it comes to spending focused time on your nutrition, this is an example of how you do that, outside of just spending all your time and energy, and also resources on fitness. You're actually going to set aside an extra hour out of your week to fill out the plan, create the shopping list. So after you have filled out the weekly menu, then you can figure out what you need to get on the master shopping list, and then you'll go to the store in your shopping trip, and that trip to the store will be more successful. As far as the week goes, the other thing I want to go over is, the other thing you want to do right off the bat is kind of X out the meals you don't have to prepare. So if you know you like to go out, on a Friday night, just cross that out. Like, mentally, that's one less meal I have to plan for. Or if it's during the week, you're, at, a practice and you're getting home late and you're not going to have time to prepare, you can be successful again going and getting food at places. And so scouting out around the area where you know you are in a hurry to make a successful and a healthy option is a valuable thing. Those things you shouldn't have to, again, like you mentioned, just kind of winging it. You want to already have those things, so those can be written down, in the weekly events. I am going to be coming home late. I've got, picking up the kids from practice, so, set that intention that these are a few healthy options we do have. So you can ask your kids, like, do you feel like this or do you feel like that? Both of them are going to be a win option, and you don't have to think about it. You're already setting yourself up for success. The monthly calendar isn't necessary, but again, a lot of people fill out a monthly calendar for different things that are happening in their life, and they do that because it helps them, not miss those important events, and it helps them, just plan accordingly, not double book something. So when you're doing that to be successful just with your social lives, it's like, again, you can easily make the argument that the only way to be successful with following through with a new healthy nutrition and making improvements is to make sure you're prepared in advance. So this just allows you to, really mark out, any special events on a larger or further in advance, and then you can have that, and it can also help you when you're filling out your weekly menu. So you may do a master menu, and it may change. Something may come up, and you might have to make a tweak to it. But then when you go to fill out your weekly menu, it's going to be just a little bit more efficient and a lot easier to do there. So does anybody have any questions on the recipes or what they can and cannot eat again during this program? Yes.
I already do Shakeology, and I know you mentioned it. Is that considered not real food?
So Steve's going to talk about that in a second. And it's like, okay, so we're doing a real food challenge, but then we have Shakeology. And what it comes down to is there are healthy options. Like, I can say there are other things that you can get that are processed and you get in a package that don't have added sugar and that are real foods and that don't have artificial sweeteners and flavors and stuff like that. And so having those tools can help when you aren't prepared. I mean, in a perfect world, everything is perfect and everything is planned out and we're eating, from the farm, and that is really the ideal way to go. But when we're not doing that and there's busy times in our life, if we can have a quick go-to option that also is aligned with what our ultimate wellness goals are, it's just setting yourself up for success on that level and preventing harmful choice that may sabotage. So a lot of what we're talking about tonight is, what we're going to add and how we're going to change our diet. But you could go down, 5 years of, continuously adding healthy things and making small changes to improve your wellness. But there could be a few large things that are completely sabotaging and offsetting, like it could be 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 positive small changes in the right direction. But if there's 2 or 3 completely negative things, that those 3 things can, again, completely offset that, and you're stuck, not going anywhere, and you're saying to yourself, why can't I, why do I find myself in this situation? I've made so many gains, I've done so many things to improve. Well, having, again, the Shakeology is an option, a go-to option to be successful. So I'm going to let Steve come up here real quick to address that, but yeah, I'll answer a few more questions.
Yeah, I had a question. When you were talking about the portions,
Yes.
where does dairy fit in there?
So dairy it's a combination. It really is, because you're going to have, there's sugars in dairies, there's fats in dairy, and there's also protein in dairy. So I would definitely say that you're going to have to just pretty much look at it as a balance, as an additional balance. So if you're going to have a cup of milk or a cup of yogurt or whatever, just understand that there's carbohydrates